Hey friends, my name is Nee Abrahams. I'm the Senior Director of Student Experience and Engagement at Butler University, and I am really excited to be part of CSLC this year. One thing I'm really passionate about is communication, and so for me, this topic of unearthing your leadership voice, stewarding how you speak, lead, and influence is something I'm really excited to share just a little bit about. I think that this is something that for a lot of young and emerging leaders is something like understanding your leadership voice is kind of something you stumble into. And so my hope for today, we only have 15 minutes, so I know we're not going to get super far into it, but my hope for today is that you at least get to start the journey of thinking about how you can steward your leadership voice. Now, a couple caveats that I think are important. One, this is not just about public speaking, even though public speaking is a part of leadership. Whether you think you're a good speaker or not, that is a part of leadership. This is about understanding who you are and how you use your voice to communicate and lead, to clarify points, to speak, etc. Two, and a couple other caveats. One, this is not about being Sadie Robertson or Philip Anthony Mitchell. Again, this is about who you are. And two, this is not about introversion or extroversion. I think that's an important caveat because I think oftentimes when we think about communication, we think about it from the perspective of who's a really good communicator, who's really personable, and who can speak to a lot of people. This is not about being introverted or extroversion, regardless of your personality. I think it's important. And if you get anything out of this kind of short talk, it's this, is that your voice is not an accident, it's a gift. Your voice is not an accident, it's a gift, and that gift must be stewarded. So whether you're introvert, extrovert, whether you love public speaking or not, this is an opportunity for you to learn how to craft that leadership voice inside of you so that God can use you to communicate whatever truths He has for the people that you are serving on your team, the students that you're coming alongside, whether you're in school or out of school. So I have three really quick thoughts that I think will help get us thinking about how we can steward our leadership voice. The first one is this, is that imitation is a starting point, but it's not a destination. Here's one of the things I love about social media is that social media gives you the opportunity to listen to and hear from people from around the world. And I think that's really cool. However, the downside is it's really easy to use those voices to kind of create your own voice, right? And so it's really easy for imitation to be kind of how we identify ourselves and the way we communicate and speak. So for instance, when I was starting to speak more, whether it's like public speaking or preaching or whatever the case may be, some of you know this pastor, Robert Madu. We come from the same denominational area, so I knew of him. I actually got to interview him once, but a lot of people were like, oh, Nee's like Robert Madu. And first of all, I was like, no.
My name is Nee. I'm not Robert Madu, as many people have pointed out several times, promise.
But I watched his sermons. I loved how he communicated. And so I remember trying to communicate like him. And I remember getting off stage doing something once. And I remember being like, that was awful because I was trying so hard to be him that I didn't really have the opportunity to figure out who I was. And so everyone has a starting point, and that's normal. Imitation is a great place to start, but the goal is not to be someone else, is to be yourself. So how can you know if you're copying? Because that's always kind of the next big question. One, if what you're communicating and after you've finished communicating, it doesn't feel or sound like you, or it doesn't feel authentic or natural, that's kind of a warning sign or a signal to go, hey, maybe there's something here that I need to pay attention to. One of the things that I found for me in particular is if you're developing an unhealthy feeling when you're seeing them on social media, maybe you get jealous or angry. For me, there were a lot of communicators that I really appreciated, but I had to unfollow because I noticed that every time I would try to communicate, I would try to sound like them. Now, this is a process we're going to talk about in a second that's going to take time to cultivate your own voice. But remember, the destination of your leadership voice doesn't come from other people. It comes from your identity. And so learning who you are will help you unearth that style of communication specific for you. So it's important. Follow the people that you want to follow, but know that your leadership voice is not someone else's, it's your own. So imitation is a starting point, but it's not a destination. And if you need to unfollow people because maybe you're like, I want to be like them so bad, do what you need to do because you want to create a healthy version of yourself and your identity. And out of that flows your leadership voice. The second thought I want to share with this is kind of connected to the first point is that cultivation and stewardship requires intentional practice. You can't develop your leadership voice without testing it out and trying it out. And that comes with trial, it comes with error, it comes with failure, it comes with like talking in front of people or having a one-on-one with someone and going, that felt weird. I have had that happen so many times. In fact, one time, one of my best friends afterwards was like, dude, that did not land the way you wanted it to land. But that's okay, because unearthing and stewarding your leadership voice takes practice. I love this idea of cultivation, because cultivation simply means unearthing what's already inside. And that just requires intentional effort. So here's some things you can do really practically to help steward and unearth and cultivate that leadership voice. One is public speaking. Like I mentioned, not everyone's designed to be a public speaker. Not everyone's going to be a big time public speaker, or when I mean big time, I mean just speaking all the time in front of people. But as a leader, you are going to have to publicly speak. And so having opportunities, creating opportunities, working with mentors to create opportunity for you to speak, I think is going to go a really long way. Another thing, if maybe you don't have that opportunity a lot, my encouragement to you is to write down your thoughts and ideas, right? So maybe you're writing in blog form, maybe you're just journaling, right? But the act of like putting your thoughts on paper in a way that creates like a story or a way that is really intentional will help you kind of cultivate and develop how you like to communicate. What are the cadences, the rhythms, the way you like to frame an idea, all those sorts of things. So even writing them down is really helpful. Even if that's not where you're at right now, here's another idea. Just to speak up in meetings, share your ideas, even if you're the only one. I think we underestimate even the idea of using your voice in a meeting with the rest of your student leaders or one-on-one. I know sometimes there's some people who are really great at kind of speaking or speaking up in a meeting, and like they're really good at it and they're quick on their feet, and some people like to process and take time. But can I like push you a little bit to like use that time to steward your voice, to practice like speaking up, practice articulating a thought in those settings, and that's going to continue to help you figure out how you can continue to lead your voice. Having a mentor or someone you trust give you feedback is always really important. But the heart of all of this idea of intentionally practice is you have to stretch yourself. You have to put yourself out there. And I know that that might feel cringy, and I know that that might feel awkward. And this isn't about content creation, right? Like if that's something that you feel the Lord is calling you to, great. But that doesn't mean you have to do like, I need a brand, I got to do all those things. Not at all. But can you stretch yourself as you're cultivating and stewarding your leadership voice? Are there places and spaces that you can begin to practice communication in big ways, in small ways? And as that begins to grow, as you continue to do that more, you'll begin to unearth some of those things that's like, this is unique to me and how I communicate. So for me, because of the context I'm in and the giftings that I feel like the Lord's given me, I've had the opportunity to speak a lot in front of people. But that's taken a lot of time and effort of like going back and watching what I've said. Oh, I would say this differently. One of the things I realized is I used to think that when I'd speak in front of people, that I would just do like really brief outlines. But what I realized is really brief outlines worked for someone that I was really close with as a mentor, but it doesn't work for me. So I actually like to type out almost manuscript style what I like to say. Now there's some caveats in between, but what I realized is by me typing it out that way, it helps me think through, oh, this would be a really great time to insert a joke, or this might be a really good time to land this point, or I really like this point, but now that I'm reading it, it doesn't really flow the same way. But that was something that took a long time for me to discover. So maybe that's not you. Maybe it's just speaking up in a meeting, but either way, practice being intentional and stretching yourself, because that will go a long way. The third point and the third idea is this. And so again, I'm just going to repeat the first one. So imitation is a starting point, not a destination. We talked about how cultivating and stewarding your leadership voice requires intentional practice. And this third part I want to highlight is this, is that your voice impacts lives. So whether positive or negative, one of the biggest communication principles is your words shape reality. So both my degrees in communication, I went to Missouri State University, go Bears, and one of the first things they ever said in my first communication class is that words shape reality. And while that is a communication principle, that's also a biblical principle. One of my favorite verses is in Proverbs. Proverbs 18:21 says this: death and life or in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And I think that's a really great principle, a leadership principle, life principles, wisdom principle for us to acknowledge that if you're in a leadership role, your voice has the ability to create life and death. Simply put, maybe it doesn't have to seem as extreme, but your words shape how people experience themselves and the spaces around them. And so as a leader, you have a responsibility with the words that you have to speak life, to bring life, to encourage, to empower. And I know that might seem a little fluffy, but I always think that's a really good reminder, especially going into a school year, as things get going. It's really easy as leaders to kind of forget that the words that we say have really big impact because of how people are looking at us. And so my encouragement to you, if you get anything out of this again, is that your voice matters. It matters. So many things come out of what you speak and communicate with. There was someone, a mentor of mine, that I was really struggling with something when it was coming to when I was coming to communicating, and I had walked off the stage and I thought I bombed it, and it was so dumb. It was a whole thing. But one of the things that I appreciated is afterwards he came to me and said, "Nee, you have no idea how much that impacted me." It was like a 5-minute little thing. He said, "You have no idea how much that impacted me." And to be honest with you, I was a senior in high school, maybe early college. I still think about that to this day when I get off stage and I'm like, I bombed it, or I'm in front of a presentation of people, I'm like, I bombed it. You never know how people are impacted. And so what he did for me, my encouragement is for you to do for someone else, to use your words to impact, to create life for people, and know that the same is true as well. When you criticize, when you are sarcastic in a way that's passive aggressive, you create opportunities for people not to experience flourishing the way God intended them. So here's my challenge to you. I know I said 3 really quick points. Imitation is a starting point, not a destination. Cultivation requires intentional practice. So be intentional in where and how you can steward and cultivate your leadership voice. And 3, which is more of a broad idea, but still really important, is that your voice does impact lives. And so as you begin to cultivate and steward that, know that there's a weight and a significance to what you have to say, not just for you, but for the people that you lead and the environments in which you are leading. So here's my challenge for you. As you think about stewarding your voice, I want you to do one thing. I want you to write down what you think your voice is and challenge yourself to find one place where you can practice that. For some of you, that is like a workshop. For others of you, that might be, hey, I'm just gonna speak up more in class, or I'm gonna speak up more in meetings. For other of you, maybe you've had this dream of content and you just are, and it's not about building a brand, it's just about stewarding that gift and crafting that. So for me right now, I actually just started a newsletter. This is not a plug, but part of the reason I did that is because I want to practice writing again. And so whether it does anything that it's not really something I care about at this moment. It's just something for me to write my thoughts and to get used to, again, writing my thoughts down, putting it in a way that's clear for people to understand. And it's been really cool to begin to practice that again in a way. And so writing has become something I've really enjoyed. So that could be a lot of different things. But my encouragement to you as a student leader is to remember that your voice is not an accident, it's a gift. And it is okay for you to not be where you want to be, but you can take intentional steps understanding communication and understanding how your voice impacts others to make a difference in your leadership style. So I'm really excited for what God wants to do in and through you. And so if you have any questions about communicating, if you want to know more or tips or whatever, I would love to connect with you. Like I said, my name is Nee Abraham. It's like kneecap minus the cap, NII. You can look me up on Instagram or on LinkedIn, or even just go to the Butler website. My email's there. But I'm excited to see what God does in and through you and your leadership voice this year. Thanks, friends.